else been bugging you? Come on in. Let's go for a drive. Well, today Dr. Frank Turek is in town. He wrote a book called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. We're going to pick him up and ask him a question that's been bugging me, bugging some students. Here he is. Hey, man.
All right.
Welcome to Manitou.
Wow.
And welcome to What's Bugging You.
We're going to hit a mosquito and lose. Look at all these kids.
We can bowl over some kids.
No, I don't
anyway.
think so. I think they weigh more than us.
Some bowling pins. This is kind of like a bowling ball.
Are we supposed to? This thing has seatbelts?
It does have seatbelts.
You're kidding me.
It's not the easiest to get to.
Yeah.
Because we're so close together.
All right. That's
You gotta be you gotta be friends to.
I got it.
To ride in this.
All right, Trip. Let's take a trip.
Hey, yeah, totally. Well, frankly, I've got some questions for you, sir.
All right, Trip. Don't try and trip me up. It's Trips. We hit a mosquito and lose.
This is gorgeous. I want it.
All right, what's on your mind?
Well, here's really what's on my mind. Something been bugging me, or at least my students. I'm really wanting to know why you're so judgmental.
Why are you judging me for judging? Huh?
Dude, look, you always you want to tell non-Christians what's right and what's wrong. Like, what gives you the privilege to do that? Just because you want to, lord your God over somebody else?
Are you telling me what's right and what's wrong right now?
No, dude, I'm saying that's what you're doing.
Well, aren't you telling me that I'm wrong for doing that? Huh? Aren't you doing that? You're at least implying that.
No, this is good. So, this challenge comes up though often, right?
Yes.
Because those who claim to have some moral high ground and make judgments on others about what's right and wrong, there's when they're telling people what's right and wrong, there's this feeling from others, like a pushback. Wait, you can't tell me what to do.
Why not?
But
who said? Are you telling me that I can't tell you what to do, but you're telling me what to do right now by telling me I can't tell you what to do?
Exactly. So why don't you think this is obvious?
To people?
Or maybe it is, yeah.
Because they haven't been trained in logic. Only the homeschoolers have. They know all this. They know it's self-defeating to say, for example, there's no truth. Is that true? They know it's self-defeating to say you ought not judge, because that's a judgment. And by the way, Jesus didn't say don't judge. He said judge not, lest you be judged.
That's so good. So that ends up in this challenge, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Jesus, your own God,
Right.
said don't judge. When that's not at all. That's not at all the case.
In fact, in John 7:24, he says, stop judging by mere appearances and make a right judgment. You have to make judgments. You have to make judgments to be an atheist, or to be a Christian, or to be anything. Or to even say you ought not impose your morality on people. That's a judgment.
Okay.
But it's imposing their morality. When somebody says, if I say that to you, I'm imposing my morality on you. I can impose that ought not on you, but you apparently can't impose any ought nots on me. See?
Right.
So everyone's trying to impose a morality in the public square, in politics. The only question is whose morality.
That's good.
And I don't want to impose my morality. I don't want to impose your morality. I want to impose the morality. The one Thomas Jefferson said was self-evident. The one the Apostle Paul says, the Gentiles are not of the law, have the law written on their hearts. He says that in Romans chapter 2. So it's not my morality I want to impose. In fact, I didn't make any of it up. I didn't make up the fact that abortion's wrong. I didn't make up the fact that murder's wrong. I didn't make up the fact that you ought not mutilate your children. I didn't make up the fact that men were made for women and women were made for men, and the best way to perpetuate and stabilize society, which is the reason the government's involved in marriage to begin with, is to legalize or to legally recognize that man-woman relationship over every other relationship. I didn't make any of that stuff up. It's not my morality, it's just the morality.
Dude, that is such a cool distinction, because typically it seems like pushback is you are imposing your morality on me, your opinion on my opinion. Okay, so what are some ways when we get into this conversation, when we get challenged as Christians, what are some ways in which we can help the other person actually see this in a persuasive way, in a gentle kind of way, without
you ask them questions when they say you ought not judge. Say, is that a judgment?
Okay.
Or then why are you judging me for judging? Or if they say, don't impose your morality on me, you say, why not? Would that be immoral? See, because you're imposing your morality on me right now. You're saying I ought not impose ought nots. Why do you get to impose that ought not on me, but I don't get to impose any ought nots on anyone?
Yeah. And what's going to come out is, well, the only thing that can come out is, well, you're telling me things that I don't like.
Well, that's just a desire, right? Yeah. You're telling me right now there are things I don't like. Like you're telling me I can't in any way express or try and impose what I believe is true. But you get to impose that on me. I don't get to impose anything on you, apparently, if you make that statement.
This objective, subjective kind of morality thing ends up like, I guess the non-Christian ends up adopting some sort of objective view, but calling it subjective in the argument. Is that
well?
What's going on?
Yeah, they'll say, let's take the real central issue in our culture today, and that's all the LGBTQ stuff. Some people on that side of the fence will say, we have a right to do X, Y, or Z. We have a right to marriage, same-sex marriage, all this. We have a right to transgenderism and all this. But number one, there are no rights unless God exists. Everything's just a matter of opinion. I mean, a government can try and say you have a right, but it's not really a right, because rights come from God. They don't come from governments. If they come from governments, they're not rights, they're preferences. Because if a new government comes into place, they can be taken away, right? A right is something that can't be taken away, that's bestowed on you by the Creator. If a government just says, well, this government says you have a right to same-sex marriage, the next government comes along and says, well, you don't. Well, is it really a right then? Because it's just the government telling you what they think you should have. But according to our Declaration of Independence and common sense, rights are granted by our Creator, and governments are instituted to secure rights, not to give them or take them away, but to make sure that you can exercise them.
So it's different between something like a right to education versus a right to life. Life is something that you have.
Yes.
It should not be taken away. It doesn't have to do with what is given to you.
That's right. Yeah, there's a difference between a right you have inherently as a human being that nobody else needs to provide you, and another right which says, like if you say you have a right to education or health care, you then have to conscript other people to give you that.
Right.
Whereas a right to free speech, nobody has to give me anything for me to exercise that. Or a right to religion. Nobody has to give me anything for me to engage in some sort of religious belief or practice.
Okay.
But if I say I have a right to health care, now suddenly somebody else is obligated to give me something that's different. And that's the difference between positive and negative rights.
Okay. So it actually seems like then if these true rights exist in the same way that morality exists, but it seemed like I heard you say that the only way those exist is if something transcendent that gives those things is actually there. So in the complaint that I originally brought up, where I am actually adopting some sort of objective morality, saying what you're doing is wrong.
You're thinking you are, anyway.
Right.
The question is, where's your standard by which to say that?
Okay.
Because if there's no God, if it's just your opinion, then it is just that. It's just your opinion. You're saying that I don't have a right to something and you do. Who said? You do? Okay. Or is there a standard of goodness that we're obligated to obey that transcends us? That's what we mean by God's nature. If God doesn't exist, not only is there no right to same-sex marriage, there's no right to natural marriage. Not only is there no right to abortion, there's no right to life. Not only is there no trans rights, there's no Christian rights or any kind of rights. Everything is just a matter of opinion and preference.
Yeah.
But of course, none of us really believe that. We think there are certain rights. Now, if God does exist, He's designed the world in such a way for us to realize that abortion is not a right, that same-sex marriage is not a right. It doesn't comport with reality. It doesn't comport with the design of the human body. It doesn't comport with the fact that we're made in God's image and that you ought not take the life of another innocent human being. So none of these things comport with what we know about natural law, or if you want to go even the scriptures. You don't need the scriptures to know abortion's wrong. You don't need the scriptures to know that men were made for women and women were made for men. It's the way that reality has been designed. That's natural law. Now, natural law and nature's it has been created by God and sustained by God, and the God behind natural law is the same God behind the Bible, but you don't need the Bible to know this.
Gotcha.
And that's why Jefferson, when he started the country, didn't quote scripture. He just quoted natural law, because he wanted to make sure we still had religious freedom, but he also wanted to ensure that we grounded rights in something beyond the government.
Right.
So he got the best of both worlds. He got God-given moral rights without saying that you had to be a part of a particular religion or denomination.
Okay. So, kind of back to the beginning then, it's almost like in order for me to legitimately complain about anything right and wrong, not as a preference, but actually right or wrong, means there has to be some sort of God that even exists for me to legitimately do that.
That's right.
Or
That's
for
right.
me to claim I have any sort of rights. In order for there to be any objective rights means there must be a transcendent right giver.
That's right.
I've heard you say something before about atheists must
Steal rights from God.
That's okay.
Okay. The book is called "Stealing from God: Why Atheists Need God to Make Their Case."
Okay.
So atheists have to steal an objective standard of morality from God, while at the same time saying God doesn't exist. If you're going to complain that Christians have been judgmental or evil or done wrong things, fine. I can agree Christians have been judgmental and evil and have done wrong things, but those things wouldn't be wrong unless God existed. But atheists don't have God in their worldview, so they actually have to steal from God to argue against him. They in effect have to sit in God's lap to slap his face.
Oh my goodness, that's so good. Frank, thank you. Thanks for this quick drive with me and Roscoe. Where can we find more about you, some of the work that you've done?
Crossexamine.org, crossexamine with a D on the end of it.org. Our YouTube channel has about 2,100 videos on it. Many of them are from the college campus.
Nice.
Many of them are short Q&As, so you can see it all there. And these issues come up all the time. And so the two main books that deal with this are I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist and Stealing from God. We also have a book called Correct, Not Politically Correct. It deals with some of these political issues, particularly same-sex marriage and transgenderism, so you can check that out too. And Hollywood Heroes, how your favorite movies reveal God. There's a lot in there as well.
So good. Hey, thanks, man.
All right.
Appreciate it.
God bless you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Turek.